Hello folks! Welcome to PolyChampions YouTube. Today we're going to make a tribe tier list. As in all things Polytopia, it depends on the map type, number of opponents, and the number of allies you have. Okay, let's rank the tribes. Let's start with the 1v1 regular size Drylands map. In S tier, we have Cymanti and Imperius. Imperius and Cymanti are both T0 tribes, meaning they can upgrade the capital on the first turn. Imperius is generally favored above all the other T0 tribes because it has a 100% resource rate. That means every tile around a village in Imperius terrain has some kind of resource. That gives them a huge economic advantage. For Cymanti, the shaman can boost units for faster expansion. The tribe has normal resource rate with some extra mountains, but it's guaranteed 2 spore tiles in its starting spawn. A hexapod has a low amount of health, but it can kill a full hit point rider and an archer. When boosted, the hexapod can deal even more damage, allowing them to kill a full hit point warrior or a defense-boosted rider or archer. In A tier, we have Bardur, Zebasi, and Elyrion. Bardur and Zebasi are A tier because they're T0 tribes. Those tribes can grow their economy and get fast giants. Bardur starts with hunting and has easy access to archery, one of the most effective units in the game. Before Path of the Ocean update, Bardur was in the top tier, but not anymore. Lumberhots now cost 3 stars, making forestry less useful than it used to be. And while Zebasi is a T0 tribe and has a great economy, farms are less bang for your buck because farms cost 5 stars for 2 population. And the farming tech doesn't lead to any other useful tech, like hunting leads to archery. Elyrion is here because Elyrion has a strong early game with access to polytars. If an Elyrion spawns close to any other tribe, they can rush polytars and dominate in the first few turns. Mid-game, Elyrion has lots of income potential from sanctuaries, something no other tribe has. Oftentimes, with a good sanctuary spot, you can afford chivalry and a few knights even before you get your first dragon. In B tier, we have Kickoo, Luxidoor, Yadakk, Oumaji, and Polaris. Kickoo is a T0 tribe. It can upgrade on the first turn. Obviously, with a starting tech of fishing and higher fishing rates, Kickoo is best on the water, not land. However, Kickoo has normal resource rates and does okay on land. Not great, but okay. So it lands solidly in the B tier. Luxidoor also falls into this okay, but not great category. Luxidoor starts with a larger capital and additional income, but not any other benefit. Although Oumaji has lower resource rates, you can use riders in tandem to leapfrog and cut through the fog faster. Riders are one of the most powerful and cost-effective units in the game. Similarly with Yadakk, they're able to expand fast. That's a big advantage, and Yadakk has pretty good resource rates. Yadakk's roads help it cover ground fast in a few turns, which can give you an edge to claiming those first few villages and ruins fast. Yadakk has higher than normal fruit rates, which can help grow the economy. You can watch our Yadakk strategy guide for advice on how to play that tribe. A link is in the description. Polaris is in the B tier because the Mooney has this auto-freeze ability which can be very powerful, but it's situational. This Mooney's freeze is strongest in the early game if you meet an opponent in the first few turns. While Polaris is better on the water, it has units like the Ice Archer, which can freeze units in their tracks. Finally, the Ice Bank in the late game can give Polaris a huge income, especially if you're playing versus other Polaris players. Next is C tier, the okay but not great tribes. Imo goes here because it gets the Altar of Peace monument early, which can give a much needed population boost. However, Imo often doesn't have parallel resources, making it hard to grow your cities. While access to philosophy is nice, many times in IMO you don't even get philosophy until the mid or late game. Mindbenders are fun, but have very limited uses in competitive games. A link to our IMO strategy guide is in the description. Hoodrick has the power of archers, and archers are great, but they need to research hunting to get their economy going. Since lumber huts now cost 3 stars, Hoodrick's abundant forests are not as lucrative as they used to be. Next is Quetzali. Like Imperius, Quetzali has a 100% resource rate around its villages. Its other advantage is early access to diplomacy, which can be great if you want to go cloaks. Many mid and late game Quetzali games are decided by cloaks. Last in C tier is Xin-xi. Xin-xi has a slight advantage on exploring because it can get more vision from climbing mountains to see where villages and ruins are. Climbing also gives a defense bonus on a mountain. However, climbing does nothing to help your economy, so it takes a long time to get Xin-xi income going. Finally, let's look at the D tier for Drylands maps. We have Vengir and Aquarion. Vengir and Aquarion have very poor resource rates, making it hard to grow your economy. While Vengir starts with a smithery tech and a swordsman, without the income to afford the swords, Vengir struggles to expand and grow. Aquarion's primary units are the amphibian and the tridentian. Those excel on water maps, but they can only move 1 tile on land. They aren't able to use roads either, so Aquarion is not good for Drylands. Now let's look at how tribes stack up on water maps, specifically Archipelago. On the top of the list is Polaris. With the path of the ocean changes to Moonies, Polaris can spread ice fast and explore. Since Polaris starts with the Frostwork tech, it can place outposts to get population and connect the capital to other cities. Oftentimes, Polaris can level up all its first few cities with outposts alone. Mid-game units like battle sleds are perfect for gliding across the ice to attack. In the late game, Ice Bank is a great way to boost income. Also in A tier on the water is Kickoo. Kickoo is strong because it starts with fishing. Being on the coast, there's usually lots of fish, which is a great way to grow those cities. Once Kickoo gets ports, it can explore the open ocean fast since it already has deep water movement. Similarly, fast access to navigation allows harvesting of starfish, which snowballs into easy money and more units. Aquarion is also strong on water maps, especially Waterworld and Archipelago. Now that Path of the Ocean gave Aquarion riding as a starting tech, amphibians are a great way to explore the water. In the late game, tridentians are incredibly powerful. However, Aquarion still has some poor resource rates, which hurts their economy. They need to strike fast and claim resources before their opponents can get an economy going. In the next tier, we have Imperius, Cymanti, Bardur, Zebasi, and IMO. As before, Imperius, Bardur, Zebasi, and Cymanti are T0 tribes. Those all make it to B tier, even on water-heavy maps, because they can upgrade their capital right away. Getting more income to fund a navy is a strong foundation to explore and conquer. While Cymanti cannot benefit from the Path of the Ocean naval units like scouts and bombers, it still gets to use Fighty to fly over the water and explore fast. Also, being able to place algae to create land bridges can be a quick way to access enemy territory with a hexapod or two. IMO moves up to B tier on water maps because philosophy makes all your techs cheaper. You need a lot of tech for a strong navy, not just sailing and economy, but rammers too. Also, it's easier to get defenders to turn into naval units with more hit points. In C tier, we have Luxidoor, Quetzali, Elyrion, Yadakk, and Oumaji. These next tribes are not terrible, but they're not good for water either. Like before, Luxidor's fine. Not good, not bad. Quetzali has a high resource rate, which helps build their economy. Also, Quetzali starts with defenders, which make for a solid foundation to turn into naval units with more hit points. Elyrion can't get any decent sanctuary spots on Archipelago. They do better on continents maps. Also, Polytar push options are very limited on water maps. Oumaji and Yadakk are best for expanding on land. Unless you can get bridges or some fortunate land connections on Archipelago, these expansionist tribes take a long time to get a navy and explore. And the bottom, D tier, we have Hoodrick, Xin-xi, and Vengir. Hoodrick's archers are not good for water-heavy maps. You need a navy, not archers, to win. Xin-xi's only benefit from climbing is getting vision from mountains, but you can't get to those resources because there's water in the way. Finally, the worst tier for water maps is Vengir. As before, their resource rates are terrible, making it very hard to afford tech and units. And what if you're playing versus many opponents? Next, let's rank tribes for an 8-player FFA game. This list is going to look a lot like the 1v1 Drylands map ranking. Imperius and Cymanti are at the top again, and for the same reasons. Imperius is in S tier. Simply put, Imperius is the strongest tribe in the game. In an FFA, the Imperius player has a lot of options: diplomacy, archery, giants, riders, etc. This tribe thrives in both peace and war. Organization gives access to strategy and peace treaties than diplomacy. Cymanti also goes in S tier because it's the best snowballing tribe. A boosted unit from a shaman can move fast, reaching resources before other tribes. A boosted hexapod goes even farther, ignoring difficult terrains like forest. Due to boosting and hexapods, Cymanti can get an early lead and trample everyone else. All it takes is an early population ruin, a good explorer, or a weak neighbor, and Cymanti will take over the game in just a few turns. Now let's look at A tier. Here we have Bardur, Zebasi, Elyrion, and Quetzali. As before, Bardur and Zebasi are A tier on FFAs because they're T0 tribes. Those tribes can grow their economy and get fast giants. Elyrion is here because of Polytars and sanctuaries. If an Elyrion player spawns close to any other tribe, they can rush Polytars and dominate in those first few turns. Quetzali does better in big FFAs because of early access to diplomacy. If a Quetzali player can meet lots of other tribes with an explorer, they can snowball their income with peace treaties and embassies. Many FFAs are won by the player who bides their time, builds alliances, grows their income and tech with embassies, then strikes from a position of power. Watch our Oumaji FFA video to see this diplomacy embassy strategy lead to victory. There's a link in the description. In B tier, we have the expansionist tribes and the other middle range tribes. Xin-xi, Hoodrick, Imo, Luxidoor, Oumaji, and Yadakk. Expansionist tribes like Oumaji and Yadakk can do well on big FFAs if they can reach villages and ruins before their opponents. Similarly, Xin-xi can get more vision from climbing mountains to see where villages and ruins are. As before, Imo, Hoodrick, and Luxidoor are okay. Not terrible, but not great either. All of these tribes do not start with an economic tech, so that prevents them from growing their cities as fast as other tribes. Vengir still has a terrible economy, but it has a strongly early game. A double sword opening can quickly destroy a neighboring capital. Vengir can contest a village if they meet anyone in the first few turns. And if Vengir can stay alive until the mid and late game, they have a decent giant potential, thanks to smithery and forges. Like Vengir, Polaris can get lucky in FFAs if they spawn close to an opponent. The Mooney's auto-freeze ability can halt a neighboring tribe's units and allow them to attack and destroy. Ice archers can also paralyze an opponent. However, this approach is highly situational and usually doesn't work out in the long run. Kickoo does not do well if we're talking about land maps. Yes, it is a T0 tribe, but it only has fish. If the FFA was on the water, then Kickoo would move up in these tiers. Lastly, we have D tier with Aquarion. Aquarion is at the bottom because we're talking about a Drylands map. Aquarion starts with a unit, the amphibian, which is arguably worse than a warrior and has nothing to show for it. Now it's time for team games, specifically 2v2 scenarios. These rankings are taken directly from the PolyChampions League. Any member of the league should be familiar with these tiers already. The beauty of team games is collaboration. Teammates share maps and coordinate strategies to attack and defend together. This makes tribe choices a bit different for 2v2 games. Like 1v1 games or FFAs, team games on Drylands have Imperius and Cymanti in the top tier. They're still the strongest tribes in the game on land maps. No question about it. B tier are the other T0 tribes, like Zebasi, Bardur, and Kickoo. Elyrion is ranked a bit higher, not only for polytars and sanctuaries, but because Elyrion can see all the ruin locations. This benefits the Elyrion player and their teammate. Quetzali is in this tier because of the access to peace treaties and embassies. One of the most common strategies in team games is to embassy rush. The earlier teammates can set up embassies, the more income they both earn. To see some great examples of embassy rush strategies in 2v2 games, click the links in the description. C-tier tribes for 2v2s are the okay, but not great ones. Imo, Yadakk, Luxidoor, Polaris, and Oumaji. Bottom tier is Hoodrick, Xin-xi, Aquarion, and Vengir. Finally, let's look at rankings for tribes on a water map in a 2v2 game. In these types of water-heavy maps like lakes and Archipelago, we see Polaris in S tier. As I said before, Polaris can use Moonies to spread ice fast and explore. With the Frostwork tech, it can place outposts, get population, and connect to the capital right away. If an opponent also picks Polaris, there's a lot of potential for high stars per turn because the more ice on the map, the more income the ice bank makes. In fact, Polaris is so OP in team games on water maps, the tribe is banned outright in 3v3 PolyChampions League games. A tier, we have Kickoo, Aquarion, Imperius, and Cymanti. Kickoo and Aquarion can get on the water fast and explore. B tier has the other T0 tribes, Bardur and Zebasi. They're generally strong for growing your economy and getting giants, even on maps with a lot of water. Elyrion and Quetzali are in this tier again because they have added value for teammates. Elyrion can show their teammates the ruin locations, and Quetzali can establish peace and embassies. In C tier are the mediocre tribes like Imo, Yadakk, Oumaji, and Luxidoor. The bottom tier are the weakest tribes for water maps. Xin-xi, Hoodrick, and sadly, Vengir. While these rankings were determined by a mix of data from 1v1 and team leagues, and also from expert opinion, these tribe tiers are still a matter for debate. We want to hear from you. What do you think are the strongest and weakest tribes in the game? Did we miss any important points? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. What other videos do you want to see in the future? Drop us a comment. Join the Discord. Get on a team. A link to the Discord server is in the description. Take care. See you on the next one.